I'm working, man. I'm working to try to get people on another page. Like, we grew up the way we grew up. Gangs for us are what fraternities are for people that grew up differently. Right. And I'm trying to get my homies as well as other people's homies to see that yo, this unity is about more than just chilling and drinking, smoking together and hustling together, whatever. It's about using that unity to better ourselves. You know, they say, oh, you hear people preach all this stuff, oh, Bloods, we about going against oppression. And yeah, it is. It is. That's the purpose. Out in Cali, they was being oppressed by the Crips at one time. Other smaller gangs, they band together, and that's how Blood came about. In New York, we is going through it with other organizations. But we're past that now. We crushed all that. And the one oppressor that still remains is the economic oppressor.
What's good, y'all? What's the Numbers TV? It's your boy, Paul Rowe. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And like a video if you appreciate the content that Paul Rowe and What's the Numbers I provided. Today we back on another profile piece. This one is on S.I., real name Garland Tyree. In this video we're going to take a look at S.I.'s tough life growing up in Staten Island, which will lead him to serve time in prison while he was just an adolescent. Next we're going to look into his connection to the creation of the New York City Bloods, and also his book he wrote that birthed the moniker Treyway, which will later blow up on a national scale as a music label, thanks to Tekashi 6ix9ine and Shotty. Lastly, we will look at the standoff he had with police in 2015 at his home in Staten Island that will ultimately cost him his life. Garland S.I. Tyree is from Tompkinsville, Staten Island. Growing up there in the late 80s and early 90s was rough, as the neighborhood was plagued with consistent gun violence. His situation at home wasn't much better, as his mother was addicted to crack and his biological father wasn't around. S.I. would end up in group homes and foster care during his early childhood. He would even spend 5 months in a psychiatric hospital at the age of 12 after a suicide attempt. S.I.'s first run-in with the law happened at around age 13, when he was arrested and charged with joyriding in a stolen car. He spent some time in a juvenile detention center and once released returned back home to his mother. At age 16 there will be another arrest, but these charges were way more serious. S.I. will be charged in 3 separate shootings, one resulting in the death of 19-year-old James Laurent. The story in different online articles is that S.I. was acting as security at a local party when Laurent tried to enter. Not recognizing him from the neighborhood, S.I. wanted to pat Laurent down before he could enter the party. Rather than comply with the search, Laurent shot S.I., who luckily had been wearing a bulletproof vest after his mother insisted. S.I. fell to the ground and was able to return fire, striking Laurent and killing him. This will happen in 1993, which is the same year the New York City Bloods will be started on Rikers Island, which is the exact place S.I. was headed. It is during this time on Rikers that S.I. will become one of the first adolescent Bloods in New York City. For the next 2 years, he will be held on Rikers fighting the different shooting charges he was facing. During this time, S.I. will pick up new charges after slashing another inmate on a transportation bus. In 1995, at the age of 18, he would plead guilty to weapons and assault charges and be sentenced to 1.5 to 4.5 years behind bars. By this time, a war had broken out between the Latin Kings and Nietas versus the Bloods for control of the New York City prison system. S.I., being a well-known Blood and target to his enemies, had to put on violently a few times and receive additional charges, causing him to do 8.5 years on that bid instead of the 1 to 4 he was sentenced to. In 2002, at the age of 25, S.I. will be released from prison and return home to Staten Island. But the welcome home party will be short-lived because S.I. will be rearrested on weapons charges less than 2 weeks later after police raided his childhood friend's home where he had been staying. Reports say the cops found guns and ammunition under the mattress in the room S.I. and his girlfriend at the time was sleeping in. He denied the guns were his and refused to take a plea deal, instead opting to go to trial on the charges against him. At trial, the same childhood friend who S.I. was staying with would testify against him, claiming the guns were his. S.I. would eventually be convicted in May of 2004 and in 2006 sentenced to 10 years in prison, but once again have some more time added to his sentence after receiving an extra 6 months for assaulting another inmate with a lock and sock beating. As he's serving his time in an upstate prison, S.I. would start writing urban fiction novels in 2009, and once released in 2012, he would launch his own publishing company and release his first book called The Treyway in 2013. During this time, S.I. will also be admitted to the College of Staten Island. He will go on to find a job at a restaurant and attempt to become involved in local politics and community activism. But the feds will paint a different picture of S.I. Surveilling him from the moment he was released from prison, they say he was back participating in gang activity and running the non-trade Bloods, as he was looked at as a godfather to the set. Because of this, SI will be charged with violating his terms of release in February 2013 and sent back to prison for a year. Once released in July of 2014, SI will return to Staten Island in a different space mentally. His social media content had changed. Gone were the days of him speaking politics and community upliftment or promoting his book on his Facebook page. Instead, he was now online calling out rival gang members, threatening snitches, and glorifying his past violent behavior. Although his friends and family say he was the same old SI during this time, eager to complete his supervised release and move on with his life. But unfortunately, that day would never come for SI, because on the morning of August 14, 2015, task force agents would show up to his home to once again arrest him for violating the terms of his release. Reports say SI used a smoke grenade to ward off the agents and then shot a firefighter who was responding to the 911 call of smoke and fire coming from the apartment. SI would start making eerie posts and statements like, "Today I die, and I'm at peace" on his Facebook, and to news reporters that reached out to him during the standoff. For the next 5 hours, SI would be in negotiations to surrender to the authorities outside, who by this time had the whole place surrounded. After reaching out to his family, they would fly his mother in by helicopter. At the scene, her and SI talked for 3 minutes where he told her he would surrender. But just when the police thought SI was coming out the home, he shot out a window, striking some cars. A few minutes later, he emerged from a basement door, firing at police. They returned fire, and once the shooting was over, they found Garland SI Tyree dead. But that wasn't the last we would hear about SI, because in the last few years, the name he created, Treyway, would go on to be one of the biggest music movements out of New York City, when Tekashi 6ix9ine would link up with some non-Trey Bloods out of Brooklyn and take the music industry by storm. We all know how that played out, and lately Billy Idol and Sekou Billy been doing interviews speaking on SI and how he created Treyway. But yo, it's What's the Numbers TV. This was a profile piece on Garland SI Tyree. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people talking about SI lately because of the whole Treyway situations back in the media with Tekashi coming home, but there's not too much information on who SI was. So, you know, I'm giving y'all some information on who he was. Now, if y'all want the jail stories and the blood stories, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't there for none of those, so you might want to go tune into some of the first generation Bloods that got on pages on YouTube that speak on SI here and there, like Corey King, CK, Wildcat might speak of them, Killer Cat. People like that might have those jail stories for you on SI that y'all love so much. But I'm just giving y'all some information on who he was, you know what I'm saying, so y'all can put a face to the name and see who created Treyway. As they Snow Billy speaks on it, Billy Otto, Sekou Billy in the Vlad TV interview, No Jumper, they all talk on who SI was. But yo, this What's the Numbers TV, it's your boy Poro. Emails in the description. Anybody want to get at me on some business? If not, go follow the Instagram. You know how we do. Until next time, it's your boy Poro. What's the Numbers TV? We out of here. Peace.
What's up, everybody? It's 2022. And with that being said, let's focus on getting that credit straight. You can get that credit straight for cheaper than a pair of Jordans. Go to letstalkmorecredit.com or definitely go follow us on Instagram at letstalk_more credit and order your audio ebook bundle. It's time to get that credit fix. Let's get it.